The Galactic Council Hall felt like a grave that had suddenly remembered it was alive. 600 alien rulers sat in their high seats, each one powerful, each one feared across the galaxy. Yet today every single one of them looked confused, almost nervous, because the hall had gone too quiet. This chamber was never silent. It was a place where different species argued like storms crashing into each other. Loud voices, shouting, claws hitting tables, wings slamming against air. This noise was normal. But today there was nothing. No whisper, no breath, just an empty pressure in the air, like the universe itself was holding its breath. The Council had just finished voting on a final judgment against Earth, a judgment that would shape the galaxy for centuries. The floating Council orb glowed red, marking a decision of extreme severity. The speaker announced the verdict with calm arrogance. Humans must surrender. Earth must kneel. Their fleet must be dismantled. The moment these words echoed, half the chamber broke into laughter. Cold, mocking, cruel laughter that echoed off the crystal walls. Many rulers were celebrating because they believed humans were the weakest species ever allowed inside the Council circle. To them, humans were strange emotional creatures, always talking about peace, always dreaming, always making friendships instead of wars. A feathered diplomat raised both wings and shouted, "Finally! No more human demands. No more human voices." A reptile warlord slammed his tail on the floor and laughed. "Earth is small. Weak. A child species pretending to be strong." But while the others celebrated, one being did not join them. Archon Vexer, the oldest strategist of the Council, sat perfectly still in his seat. His gray skin looked paler than usual. His 4 eyes stared not at the alien rulers, but at the glowing red Council orb, as if he saw something inside it that no one else could see. His long fingers tightened around his staff. He breathed slowly, and when he finally spoke, his voice trembled with something close to fear. "Humans never answer with the first voice," he whispered. "They answer with the last." The hall fell quiet for a moment, not out of respect, but out of annoyance. A metallic leader with glowing wires laughed at him. "Old fool. Humanity can barely defend their own borders." A shadow being hummed darkly, "Humans have no ancient weapons, no world breakers, no master fleets. They survive because we allow it." Vexer's voice lowered even more. "And yet, we do not understand them. Not their history, not their silence, not their patience." But no one wanted to hear fear. No one wanted to hear warnings. They wanted victory. And humans, in their minds, were an easy enemy. But the universe had its own timing, and its own way of answering arrogance. At first, no one noticed it. A soft vibration under the floor, gentle like a tiny heartbeat hiding under stone. Then another vibration, slightly stronger. Then another, like distant thunder crawling up through the building. The Council speaker frowned. "Is this an earthquake?" Technicians looked confused. "Readings are abnormal, sir," one whispered. Screens flickered. Lights blinked. A few floating drones dropped from the air. Something was wrong, not physically, but atmospherically. The hall felt heavier, as if some invisible force was pressing down on every species inside it. Then the first alarm sounded. A sharp, piercing siren that echoed through the chamber, silencing every voice instantly. Warning symbols covered the central hologram. The technicians screamed as their equipment short-circuited. "Energy spike detected. Planetary sensors are overloaded. Something is entering orbit." The Council speaker shouted, "Identify the incoming signature." But the screens kept glitching, showing blurry shapes, unreadable numbers, impossible data. Finally, after several seconds of chaos, one line appeared clearly on the main screen. "Unknown signature detected." The hall froze. Unknown? Impossible. The Council database contained information on every species, ship, and weapon across 18 galaxies. Nothing should be unknown. The amphibious leader croaked weakly. What kind of signature?" Another technician whispered, terror in his voice. "Origin. Earth." The silence inside the Council hall turned painful. One ruler dropped the cup he was holding. Another pulled back in fear. A lizard warrior's jaws slowly opened, but no laughter came out this time. The speaker's voice cracked. That cannot be. Earth does not possess such technology. Before anyone could respond, more warnings flashed rapidly. Signature is massive. Signature is multiple. Signature is approaching at impossible speed. Then the message that shattered whatever courage remained in the hall. Signatures are not from one ship. Everyone leaned forward, hearts pounding, minds blank. They are from hundreds. The room felt colder, as if the walls themselves stepped back in fear. Archon Vexor stood slowly, ancient bones trembling. His voice was barely a whisper now. They are coming. The hologram abruptly switched to the live feed of the planetary defense satellites. And in that instant, every ruler forgot how to breathe. Beyond the upper atmosphere, hundreds of giant, dark shapes tore out of hyperspace like shadows ripped from another dimension. They did not appear like normal ships. They did not burst into real space with loud energy surges. They did not shine with bright colors. They arrived the way storms creep over dead oceans. Silent, slow, heavy, and unstoppable. The ships were colossal, bigger than any human ship recorded in history. Their black armor absorbed all light. Some were shaped like long blades stretching through the void. Some like massive triangles. Some like floating monoliths. Some had glowing red lines pulsing like veins. Others had no visible markings, no lights, no engines, just impossible, terrifying presence. The most shocking part, every council sensor failed to read them. Some ships displayed zero mass, others infinite mass. Some glitched into non-existent. Some appeared twice at different coordinates. There was no logic, no database match, no pattern, just fear, pure fear. The reptile warlord whispered, This is not Earth's fleet. This is something else. A crystalline ambassador stuttered, These ships should not exist. Humans cannot build these. A technician screamed, We cannot scan them. They are invisible to our systems. The council speaker shouted, Open communication channels. Static. Every channel. Just static. Then all screens went black. The hall plunged into a darkness deeper than night. For 10 seconds, no one moved. No one dared breathe. Then a human voice, calm, cold, emotionless, echoed through the council hall. A voice that carried no anger, no fear, no kindness. A voice that sounded like a final judgment. This is Earthfleet. Every alien trembled. The voice continued, We received your message. A slow pause. The entire hall leaned forward, terrified. We reply now. The screens flickered once, then displayed the same message on every wall. Earthfleet has arrived. Archon Vexor closed his eyes, a tear falling down his old grey face. The last voice has spoken, and the hall, once filled with arrogance, now drowned in fear so thick that even the air felt alive with it. The humans had arrived. And nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same. Panic spread through the Galactic Council hall like a slow, silent poison slipping under every ruler's skin. The alarms continued screaming, echoing off the crystal walls, bouncing through the ancient stone floors, but no one could hear them anymore. The sound inside their minds was louder. Fear. Cold, hollow fear. The kind that makes the strongest warriors forget their own strength. The Council's greatest leaders, beings who had stood tall in front of supernovas and ancient beasts, now trembled like children lost in a storm. Archon Vexor stood at the center platform, his staff slightly shaking as he watched the dark human fleet settle into high orbit. He had lived a long life, long enough to see empires rise and fall, but never, not once, had he seen a fleet move like that. No aggression, no noise, no demands. Just arrival. Heavy. Silent. Absolute. The silence was worse than war. Silence means confidence. Silence means control. Silence means power. The planetary defense commander screamed orders into a communicator that wasn't even working. Activate shields. Full planetary shield. Full power. But the shields never came online. They flickered like dying candles, sparked once, and then collapsed entirely. Engineers ran across the upper balcony, tripping, shouting, but every system refused to respond. It was as if the whole planet had fallen under a blanket of invisible pressure, suffocating every signal, blocking every command. Another technician shouted with trembling hands, We have lost access to the defense grid." "How?" the speaker roared, his crystalline body pulsing dangerously. "Who shut it down?" The technician swallowed hard. "No one, sir. We didn't lose control. The system just refuses to acknowledge us." An insectoid warlord hissed angrily, its wings shaking. "This is sabotage. Earth must have hacked." "No," Vexor whispered, cutting him off with a tone that froze the room. "This is not hacking. Humanity has not even touched our systems." The entire chamber turned toward him. He continued, voice shaking but steady enough to be heard. "Our systems are shutting themselves down because they sense something stronger." A gas being flickered violently, changing colors in panic. What could possibly be stronger than the Council's network? Vexor slowly lifted a trembling finger and pointed toward the hologram of the Earth fleet. Hundreds of massive black ships surrounding the planet like an eclipse of metal. Them. The council hall filled with a strange noise, the kind that wasn't sound at all. More like the echo of thousands of instincts warning their owners to run. Alien rulers clutched the edges of their seats. Some stood to leave. Some whispered prayers to old gods. Some simply stared, unable to understand how a species they once mocked had arrived with a force that could drown a star. The speaker tried to take control again. "Open communication. Demand identification. Ask for diplomatic." The words cut off as all screens flashed a blinding white. A single human symbol appeared, a circle with 3 branching lines behind it, glowing with blood-red light. The symbol looked old, ancient even, something that did not match modern human designs. Many aliens didn't recognize it, but Vexor did. His voice broke. The old Terran mark, the one they used before joining the council. The entire hall trembled again as the screens began showing archive footage no one had seen in centuries. Footage that the council itself had buried deep underground, hidden behind locked codes, forbidden even for research. Yet somehow, the humans had activated it. The first image showed humans walking through a burning battlefield. Unarmored, bleeding, carrying wounded allies on their backs, refusing to retreat even when surrounded by monstrous beasts 3 times their size. The next image showed human scientists building machines in underground bunkers while meteors fell outside, refusing to die even when the planet itself tried to kill them. Another clip showed human explorers fighting storms made of living lightning, surviving conditions that should have destroyed any organic life. A shadow being whispered, How did a species like this ever appear?" More footage played, human history filled with war, collapse, rebirth, disaster, hope, heartbreak, and relentless survival. They had defeated enemies bigger than planets. They had survived plagues, ice ages, nuclear wars, and cosmic anomalies. Every time they fell, they stood again. Every time they were broken, they rebuilt. Every time they lost, they learned. A crystalline ambassador trembled. "Their history is terrifying." Vexor nodded slowly. "Humans are not dangerous because of their weapons. They are dangerous because they always return." The footage ended abruptly. The symbol returned. The screen went black. Then a single line appeared. "We do not kneel." The council speaker stepped back, crystals dimming. This must be bluffing. But no one believed that. Not anymore. Suddenly, the planetary floor shook, not from weapons, not from attacks, but from something massive descending outside. Holograms flickered and switched to a new live feed. A smaller human ship, still gigantic by council standards, broke through the clouds. It descended slowly, gracefully, like a dark angel falling through the sky. It did not fire any weapons. It did not broadcast any signal. It simply approached the council citadel's landing platform. Every instinct in every alien screamed, "Fear this." The landing gear touched the platform with a heavy thud. Silence. More silence. Too much silence. Then the ramp opened. Out stepped a single human. No armor. No weapon. No helmet. Just a long black coat, boots covered in dust, and eyes that looked like they had seen 1,000 galaxies burn. He walked with slow steps, each one echoing across the landing pad like a judge walking toward a courtroom. He wasn't big or muscular. He wasn't glowing with energy. He wasn't surrounded by guards. He was just human. But the entire council hall felt the weight of his presence like gravity made of fear. The speaker whispered, Why only one? Vex's voice cracked. Because one is enough. The human reached the council doors. The guards, trained to fight cosmic invaders, stepped back instead of forward. The doors opened for him automatically, though they were not supposed to. The chamber lights dimmed as he walked inside. 600 alien rulers fell silent instantly. Many lowered their heads without realizing it. Some couldn't even look at him. He walked to the center of the chamber and finally raised his eyes. And in that moment the truth hit the room like a cold wave. He wasn't here for peace. He wasn't here for surrender. He wasn't here for discussion. He was here to deliver an answer. His voice was calm, almost gentle, but the hall shook with every word. You declared humans must kneel. No one responded. You demanded the dismantling of our fleet. No one breathed. You believed we would surrender. No one blinked. He lifted his head and looked around the entire chamber, eyes steady, unblinking, ancient. This is our reply. The Earth fleet outside shifted formation, giant ships turning in perfect silence, forming a circle around the planet, each one glowing with a low red light like sleeping monsters awakening. The humans spoke one final sentence, and it cracked every soul in the room. Earth does not kneel. The chamber shook. The atmosphere thickened. Every alien felt the same crushing truth. Humanity had come, and they did not come to talk. The human envoy stood in the heart of the Galactic Council chamber like a dark shadow made of calm fire, and every alien in that hall felt something they had never felt from a human before, silence that crushed the lungs. A silence that felt older than the council itself, older than the giant citadel that floated above the planet, older than the laws etched into the walls. His presence had weight. Not physical weight, but something deeper, something invisible, something that pressed into the heart and refused to leave. The speaker tried to speak but failed. His crystalline mouth flickered with dying light. The amphibious leader's throat clicked, unable to form words. Even the reptile warlord, whose species feared nothing in the universe, held his breath, claws trembling against the marble desk. The envoy didn't raise his voice. He didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He simply looked around the chamber, slow and steady, like he was counting each ruler, like he was memorizing their fear, like he was confirming something humans had known for years. Outside the window behind him, the massive Earth fleet continued shifting in the sky, blocking sunlight, covering the entire horizon with dark shapes moving in absolute silence. The ships moved like living things, smooth, precise, controlled. No species in the galaxy had ever built ships like that. No species in the galaxy had ever seen a fleet arrive this quietly, this confidently, this close to a council world without permission. And inside the chamber, the envoy finally blinked once. Just once. But even that single blink made several rulers flinch. He stepped forward. One step. The sound of his boots hitting the crystal floor echoed like a hammer striking the minds of every alien in the room. One step and half the chamber felt faint. Second step and a gas being flickered into near invisibility from shock. Third step and the reptilian warlord's knees bent without his permission. The envoy spoke only one sentence, but his voice carried through the hall like a quiet storm. You made a mistake. The speaker forced himself to speak, voice cracking. What mistake do you speak of, human ambassador? The envoy lifted his chin slightly. You believed the galaxy could decide Earth's fate. A murmur ran through the chamber. Confusion, panic, disbelief. But no one dared raise their voice above a whisper. The envoy continued, eyes locked onto the speaker. You believed you could command humanity to kneel. He stepped closer, and the speaker dimmed further. You believed our silence was weakness. Our patience was surrender. Our diplomacy was fear. His expression didn't change, but something in the air shifted. Something colder, something tighter, something that felt like a warning carved into the bones of every species. You believed we were small. He let the words sink in. No one dared move. No one dared breathe. Then something happened that no one expected. The envoy suddenly went still, completely still, as if listening to something far away. The entire chamber felt the tension, like the air thickened around him. His eyes shifted upward for a brief moment, almost as if he heard a distant voice. Then the holograms in the center of the chamber flickered and activated on their own. No technician touched anything. No one issued a command. The system bypassed all council authority and responded only to the presence of the human envoy. The chamber filled with a colossal image, a rotating 3D view of the planet from above. The Earth fleet appeared in black silhouettes around the world, growing sharper, clearer, more detailed by the second. The technicians panicked. Sir, the system has been overridden. By who? No one. It's responding automatically. That's impossible. It's reading the human envoy as a command source. The speaker shook with fear. How is this possible? Vexa's old voice answered with a heavy sadness. Because the one standing in front of us is not a diplomat, not a general, not a soldier. He is something far more dangerous. They all stared at Vexa, waiting, terrified. He is a message. The envoy finally spoke again, as if confirming Vexa's words. You wanted Earth's surrender. But you didn't understand what you were asking for. You didn't understand what you were waking. He moved his hand slowly, and the hologram zoomed in on the largest human ship. A ship so large it dwarfed the Council's entire defense fleet. A ship shaped like a floating fortress carved from midnight. This, the envoy said quietly, did not exist in your records because you were never meant to see it. The reptile warlord whispered, What is that ship called? The envoy's eyes didn't move from the hologram. It has no name in your language. Try, the warlord croaked. The envoy looked directly at him, his voice cold as frost. In ours, we call it the graveship. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Dozens of leaders recoiled. A childlike voice from a small species echoed softly, Why would a ship be called that? The envoy answered simply, Because everything that challenges it ends there. The hologram shifted, showing the graveship from different angles. Massive cannons the size of cities, weapon ports glowing faint red, armor plates unknown to any council database. But the terrifying part wasn't the size, or the weapons, or the shape. It was the feeling the ship emitted, even through a hologram. Fear. Cold, ancient fear. The amphibious leader's voice cracked. Why would Earth build such a thing? The envoy turned toward him. Because Earth learned long ago that silence is safer than shouting. He slowly walked around the chamber. Humanity showed peace because peace was deserved. Humanity stayed quiet because quiet was respected. Humanity obeyed because respect was mutual. He stopped walking. But today, you broke that mutual respect. A sudden explosion of red light flashed through the hologram. The council guards jumped. Everyone thought the graveship fired a weapon. But no. The ship had simply reconfigured its formation. That alone caused the warning systems to panic. The envoy raised his hand again and pointed at the hundreds of ships forming new shapes around the planet. Shapes that looked like giant circles, triangles, and rotating lines of military precision. Do you know what these formations mean? The envoy asked softly. None of the rulers answered. Vexa did. His voice was broken. War readiness. The envoy nodded once. Correct. A gas being flickered into a trembling shade. You mean to attack the council? The envoy raised his head, expression unreadable. If we wanted to attack, you would not have seen us arrive. The room fell into a deeper fear. The envoy continued, voice calm and cold. Earth did not come for revenge. We did not come for blood. We did not come for destruction. Everyone held their breath, waiting for the real answer. "We came to make you understand one truth." He stepped into the center of the chamber again. The hologram zoomed in on the graveship, glowing like a dark sun. "Humanity will not kneel." He lowered his voice into a chilling whisper. "And we never will." The chamber shook again, not from sound but from emotion. Fear, guilt, realization, regret. Every alien felt the same truth sink into their bones. Humanity had not brought war. Humanity had brought a warning. A warning carved in silence. A warning carried by a single human who spoke like a verdict. A warning backed by a fleet that moved like a shadow of doom. A warning the galaxy would never forget. The chamber air felt heavier now, almost thick enough to choke. The human envoy's words still hung above the alien rulers like a cold blade pressed against the throat of the galaxy. Every species in the council, some ancient, some powerful, some proud, sat frozen in a terror none of them had ever experienced before. Their world, their authority, their laws, all felt suddenly small. All felt meaningless. All felt fragile. The envoy stood in the center of the hall, and somehow his quiet breathing sounded louder than the alarms, louder than the echoes, louder than the trembling hearts around him. The speaker tried to stand tall, but the crystals in his body dimmed with every second. He finally forced himself to speak, voice shaking like glass under pressure. "Human envoy, if you did not come for war, then for what purpose does your fleet surround our world?" The envoy didn't move for a long moment. His silence pulled every ruler deeper into fear. Then he finally lifted his eyes, and something changed in them. Something colder, something older, something that felt like the memory of pain. "You voted for Earth to kneel," he said quietly. "But you never asked what pushed us to this moment." His words made several species flinch. He continued walking slowly around the chamber, each step echoing in a way that felt too heavy for a single human. "You never asked why humanity stayed silent for so long. Why we never expanded aggressively. Why we avoided border conflicts. Why we pulled back from several star systems without complaint." His voice lowered to a calm whisper that struck harder than any scream. "You assumed it was weakness." The reptilian warlord instinctively shook his head, claws digging into the table. "Humans hid their true power. Why?" The envoy finally stopped. "Because humanity has learned a lesson older than your council." He looked up, emotion flickering behind his calm mask. "When humanity fights, worlds break." The room fell into a deeper silence. A small childlike alien shivered so violently its chair shook. An insectoid queen covered her wings, as if trying to protect herself from something unseen. The hologram behind the envoy flickered again, showing flashes of Earth's past, scenes the council had never been allowed to see. The envoy didn't look at the images, but he spoke as they played. "Our history is carved in loss. Entire cities burned. Generations vanished. Oceans swallowed continents. Our ancestors buried countless tragedies under their feet and kept walking." The images got darker. Flames. Floods. Wars. Humanity rebuilding itself again and again with broken hands and wounded hearts. Humans carry the weight of every disaster we survived. And we never wanted another species to feel that weight. Several rulers lowered their eyes, ashamed. They had mocked humans for being emotional, for crying, for fearing, for hoping. Now they were learning that emotions were not weaknesses. They were warnings. The envoy walked closer to the hologram. The footage shifted to modern humans, engineers building massive ships in quiet underground cities, scientists working under dying suns, soldiers standing guard over refugees from other species. "We built fleets to protect, not conquer. We built weapons to deter, not destroy. We built alliances to prevent the galaxy from repeating our mistakes." His voice broke slightly, but he hid it well. "We wanted peace. We tried peace. We believed in peace." The hologram went dark. The chamber lights flickered. The envoy turned slowly, and his expression shifted from sorrow to something harder to bear, disappointment. "And yet you," he gestured around the hall, "saw our silence as permission to dominate us." The The speaker tried to defend the council. We feared humanity might destabilize the balance. Balance? The envoy interrupted gently, but his tone held a sting like ice cutting skin. You feared the species who offered help. You feared the species who healed your sick. You feared the species who defended your borders when your own militaries failed. His voice grew even softer. You feared kindness. Many rulers bowed their heads. They didn't have an argument. They didn't have excuses. They only had guilt. The envoy stepped toward the center of the chamber again. The hologram brightened once more, showing the entire Earth fleet, aligned with perfect precision. No movement wasted. No ship out of formation. A display of unity so absolute it made the Council's military forces look like scattered children's toys. The envoy looked at the projection, then back at the rulers. This fleet is not here to destroy you. It is here to show you what you almost unleashed. The amphibian leader croaked weakly, Unleashed, how? The envoy responded quietly, humanity's restraint. His eyes hardened. You never wanted us to kneel. You wanted to test if we would. And now you have your answer. The speaker stuttered, we miscalculated. The envoy did not blink. Yes, you miscalculated our silence, our patience, our warnings. He took one step closer. And your final miscalculation was believing you could decide the fate of Earth without Earth present. The speaker lowered his head in shame. Human envoy, if this is not an act of war, then what is it? The envoy slowly lifted his right hand. A small device materialized, a metallic cube no larger than a fist. It pulsed with soft blue light. The rulers stared at it, confused and afraid. He placed it gently on the council's central table. This, he said softly, is humanity's proof of intention. The cube activated. No one touched it. It rose into the air and unfolded like petals of cold light. A map of the galaxy appeared, glowing red marks across dozens of sectors. Then more marks. Then more. Hundreds. Thousands. Thick clusters of red surrounding the borders of every major empire. The chamber gasped. Are those? Yes, the envoy whispered. Human presence. The reptile warlord snarled in disbelief. That is impossible. Humanity does not have that many colonies. The envoy looked at him. Not colonies. Our people. Our refugees. Our outposts. Our scientists. Our explorers. The warlord froze. The envoy continued softly. We were everywhere long before you realized it. We were helping, trading, learning. Quietly, peacefully. He looked around the chamber, voice lowering into a cold sadness. You threatened Earth, but you did not realize you were threatening millions of humans across your own worlds. Several rulers' eyes widened in horror. They had never considered this. They had never imagined their order would put humans across their own territories in danger. The envoy stepped back, letting the truth sink into every corner of the chamber. We came here to remind you that Earth is not alone. His voice deepened. And if you force our hand, he paused, letting every beating heart feel the weight of the moment. We will not fight for Earth alone. The cube shut down. The map vanished. Silence returned, heavier, darker, final. The envoy looked around the chamber one last time. This is your last moment to choose. Peace or consequences. And the entire galaxy held its breath. The map vanished, the cube dimmed, and the chamber slipped into a silence so heavy it felt like a living thing pressing down on every alien chest. 600 rulers sat frozen, their power suddenly meaningless, their titles suddenly hollow. For the first time in the Council's long history, not a single voice dared to rise. Even the air seemed afraid to move. The human envoy stood still in the center, not smiling, not gloating, not angry, just heartbreakingly calm, as if he carried a sorrow older than the Council itself. That calm frightened them more than any weapon ever could. The speaker finally tried to speak, but his voice cracked like glass breaking inside a cold room. We did not know humans had spread so far. His words fell apart, lost to the tension suffocating the chamber. The envoy didn't respond immediately. His silence was its own kind of punishment. When he finally lifted his head, his eyes carried something deeper than anger, something that looked like disappointment born from centuries of history. "You never asked," he said softly. "You never cared to understand what humanity really is." Several rulers flinched. He continued, walking slowly around the enormous circular table, each step echoing like a soft drumbeat of judgment. "You looked at our small planet and assumed we were small. You counted our colonies and assumed we were few. You measured our fleet and assumed we were weak." His voice dropped even lower. "But you never measured what was inside us." The gas being flickered weakly. "We misinterpreted your actions." The envoy turned to look at it, and though his expression remained calm, the gas being collapsed into a trembling swirl. "You misinterpreted our restraint," the envoy answered. "You mistook peace for fear. You mistook silence for submission." His eyes hardened. "You mistook humanity's kindness for emptiness." A murmur of shame rippled across the room, not loud, not spoken, but felt. The reptile warlord's claws shook, scratching deep marks into the table. A childlike ruler wiped tears with trembling fingers. Even the insectoid queen, known for her ruthlessness, folded her wings inward like a frightened creature. The envoy took another step, and the chamber lights dimmed automatically, responding to his presence. Every alien heart beat faster. Then it happened. Every screen in the hall flickered to life, uncommanded. Not by the technicians. Not by the council. But by something else. A new image filled the hologram. Thousands of council warships powering up, preparing to launch, moving in frantic formation toward the Earth fleet outside. The chamber erupted. Who gave that order? Stop the launch. The defense forces will start a war. Shut them down. Deactivate all weapons now. But nothing stopped. Nothing responded. Nothing obeyed. Even the commanders on board their own ships couldn't control their systems. Alarms blared inside the hall as the weapons aimed toward the human fleet. Missiles, ion cannons, plasma batteries, even the planet's ancient orbital defense towers. Every weapon, every turret, every line of fire, aimed at the humans. Panic spread like wildfire. The insectoid queen shrieked. This wasn't authorized. The gas being dissolved into trembling mist. The crystalline speaker pounded the table with both glowing hands. "We are going to trigger a war." Vexer, the old strategist, slowly turned pale as he watched the screens. "No, this is worse than war." Everyone looked at him. His voice broke. "This is fear acting on its own." The envoy finally stepped forward again, and the entire hologram froze instantly as if the universe itself was waiting for him to speak. He didn't look at the rulers first. He looked at the weapons aimed at his people. His eyes stayed still, calm, unreadable. That emotionless calm terrified every species in the room. Then he said something so soft it felt impossible. "Stand down." The council speaker jumped up. "We are trying. Our systems are unresponsive." The envoy finally turned toward the window behind him. The sky outside had darkened fully now, blanketed by the shadow of the Earth fleet. Hundreds of ships. Silent. Absolute. Waiting. They didn't move. Didn't fire. Didn't react. But their presence alone felt like judgment. The envoy raised one hand, not toward the council, but toward the massive human ships above the world. He whispered an order barely loud enough for the nearest rulers to hear. "Do not retaliate." The graveship, the largest human vessel, shifted slightly, almost like a nod. The council nearly collapsed in relief. But that relief turned into dread when the envoy lowered his hand again and looked back at them. "Do you see," he whispered, "how easily this could have ended everything?" The speaker's voice trembled. We swear the activation was accidental." "No," the envoy said gently. "It wasn't." The walls of the chamber trembled with fear. He stepped toward them, voice steady. "You are not facing an accidental attack. You are facing your own panic." His voice grew heavier. "Fear has taken control of your fleets, of your leaders. of your systems. He walked closer, eyes steady, quiet, unforgiving. You fear us more than you fear war. A small alien with glowing blue skin whispered with a shaking voice, "Can you blame us, after seeing that fleet?" The envoy knelt before the terrified creature, something no one expected, and that made the moment even more powerful. His voice softened. You fear what you do not understand. But you do not understand humans because you never tried. Tears rolled down the childlike alien's face. The envoy stood again, turning toward the entire hall. This is why we came. He pointed to the hologram showing the overwhelming Earth fleet. Not to destroy you. His finger lowered. But to show you what will happen if you force us to defend ourselves again. The reptile warlord swallowed hard. And if this continues, will Earth attack? The envoy didn't answer immediately. His silence made everyone lean forward with dread. When he finally spoke, his voice was emotionless. If Earth wanted war, your planet would already be ash. The entire chamber felt the truth in those words like a cold blade slicing through the soul. He continued, but humanity does not want war. Humanity wants understanding. Humanity wants peace. His tone darkened, but not peace built on our knees. The speaker whispered, voice almost gone, "Then, what must we do?" The envoy slowly raised his head. This is your chance to choose. Not us. He stepped back into the center of the chamber, and the lights dimmed further. Choose peace willingly, he said softly, or you will force us to choose for you. The screens shut down. The weapons stopped automatically. The Earth fleet remained silent. The galaxy held its breath. And the Council faced a truth they had never imagined. Earth had not come to surrender. Earth had come to give them one last chance. The chamber felt colder now, colder than any winter on any world, as if some unseen wind had entered the room and wrapped icy fingers around every ruler's heart. No one moved. No one spoke. The human envoy stood in the center like a figure carved out of night, unmoving, unreadable, unstoppable. His quiet warning still echoed inside every mind. Choose peace willingly, or you will force us to choose for you. Those words didn't feel like a threat. They felt like a prophecy waiting at the edge of reality. The speaker tried to stand, but the light in his crystalline body flickered with every trembling movement. His voice cracked when he finally spoke, sounding more like a plea than authority. Human envoy, we understand your message. But the Council must consider all possibilities. We must discuss how to. Discuss? The envoy repeated softly, and the single word hit the room like a strike of thunder. He looked around the chamber, eyes sharp enough to cut through stone. You already discussed us. You already judged us. You already voted on our future. Without us. Without truth. Without understanding. Each sentence stabbed deeper into the chamber's collective guilt. He took a slow breath, and every alien watched him with terrified respect. Now you will listen. The rulers shrank into their seats. Even species known for their cold logic or brutal courage felt something unfamiliar rising in their chests. Shame. Fear. Uncertainty. None of them were used to feeling that. The envoy walked forward again, and the floor seemed to tremble under his boots, each step echoing in a way a normal human's steps should never echo. You watched us from a distance and decided what we were, he said. You wrote stories about our weakness. You made laws based on assumptions. You agreed that Earth should kneel because you believed humanity was small. His voice lowered, heavy with old pain. But you never looked close enough to see the truth. The holograms activated again on their own, displaying more recordings, human scientists working with alien refugees, human soldiers defending colonies not their own, human doctors treating wounded enemies after battles. These were not scenes of conquest. These were scenes of compassion, sacrifice, humanity at its best. The envoy didn't turn toward the holograms. He didn't need to. His voice carried the weight of every image. You feared us not because of our violence but because of our heart. You feared how far we go to protect others. You feared what we might become if we ever stopped holding ourselves back. A reptile warlord finally broke, speaking through clenched teeth. Why would humans hold themselves back? The envoy looked at him, eyes filled with centuries of unspoken aches. Because our strength comes from pain. And we know what pain can create. He took another step closer. We do not want to become what pain once made us. We do not want to become the monsters we defeated in our own past. We restrain ourselves not because we are weak, but because we remember what unrestrained humanity once did. A wave of dread swept through the chamber. Vexer, the old strategist, felt his knees weaken as the truth hit him like a falling star. Humans are not hiding power, he whispered. They are afraid of using it. The envoy's silence confirmed it. Suddenly, the hall darkened for a moment as an enormous shadow passed over the windows. The rulers gasped. Something massive had shifted in orbit. The hologram flickered again, now showing the graveship, the largest vessel in Earth's fleet, slowly rotating into a new position. Not firing, not attacking, but watching. Watching the council chamber like a silent guardian, or a silent executioner. The speaker collapsed back into his seat. We cannot win against such a vessel, his voice broke. Not even with all our fleets, not even with all our allies. The envoy finally turned and looked directly at him. We never asked you to win. The speaker's crystal body dimmed in confusion. Then what do you want from us? The envoy slowly walked to the very center of the chamber, where the council orb floated, glowing, recording, observing. The sphere's red light, which had signaled Earth's forced surrender minutes ago, flickered weakly now, unsure, almost ashamed of the decision it held. The envoy raised his hand, not touching it, but the orb responded instantly, lowering toward him like a frightened animal seeking forgiveness. Its red glow faded into a trembling white. The rulers stared in shock. No one had ever influenced the orb. No one. The envoy placed his palm gently above the sphere, not touching it but commanding it. The orb emitted a soft sound, like an ancient sigh. Then the envoy spoke. We want recognition, not control. We want respect, not dominance. We want peace, not blindness. He lowered his voice into a tone filled with something raw. And we want you to understand that humanity is done being small in your eyes. A cold shiver ran down every spine in the room. Silence consumed the hall. No alarms, no voices, no debates. Just a deep, ancient stillness. Slowly, the envoy stepped away from the orb, letting it rise again. Its white glow remained, brighter now, as if acknowledging his authority not given, but earned through truth. The reptile warlord leaned forward, claws trembling. If we choose peace now, what happens? The envoy's eyes softened, just for a moment, like a small spark of hope flickering behind centuries of caution. Then the galaxy breathes free. He paused, and the graveship sleeps again. A collective exhale swept through the chamber, but the fear didn't vanish. It lingered like a shadow behind a closed door. The insectoid queen whispered, and if we choose conflict? The envoy's calm face didn't change, but something cold, ancient, and final slid into his voice. Then the galaxy will know the side of humanity we prayed never to show again. The chamber trembled with that truth. The speaker looked at the envoy with hollow defeat. We must decide. The envoy nodded. Yes, and you must decide now. A deep, vibrating hum filled the hall, coming from the Earth fleet above. The ships were repositioning again, forming a massive ring around the planet, each one glowing faintly red. Not attacking, not threatening, waiting for the Council's answer, waiting for the galaxy's fate. The envoy stepped back slowly, his final words carrying the weight of an entire species behind them. Your decision will echo across every world. Across every future. Across every child yet to be born. He turned halfway, shadows stretching around him. Choose carefully. The chamber remained frozen, every ruler suspended between terror and realization, between guilt and survival, between their old arrogance and a new truth they could no longer escape. Humanity was no longer asking for a seat at the table. Humanity was giving them a final chance to sit as equals, before the table shattered forever. The council chamber felt like a living prison now, its walls tightening with invisible force as 600 alien rulers realized they stood at the edge of history, at the edge of survival, at the edge of a choice that could rewrite the future of every star in the galaxy. None dared speak. None dared breathe loudly. The human envoy stood silently at the center, still as stone, eyes cold as distant space, patience deep as an old wound. He was waiting for the rulers to decide whether they would walk toward peace, or force humanity to close the last door. The speaker tried to gather the strength to rise again. His crystalline body shook with every movement, shards of light flickering inside him like unstable stars. We must vote, he whispered, each word trembling like glass under stress. But even before he could finish, the chamber lights flickered violently, then steadied, then flickered again. A deep rumbling sound shook the floors. Not an explosion. Not an attack. Something else, something subtle, something approaching. Dozens of rulers shouted at once. What now? Another fleet? Is it the humans? Is it our defense system failing again? The envoy didn't turn toward the noise. He already knew. A massive shadow passed over the chamber windows. This one larger than any before. Darker, denser, almost like a continent drifting through the sky. The rulers screamed and scrambled back in terror as the holograms activated without command. The projection filled the hall with an image of something incomprehensibly huge descending from orbit. The graveship, but not the side view they had seen before. The underside, a spiraling network of glowing red lines, thousands of meters long, forming circles, symbols, patterns no alien had ever seen. It wasn't a weapon, at least not one they recognized, but it beamed fear straight into every instinct in the room. It looked alive, breathing, ancient. A design not just built by engineers, but forged by experience, by sorrow, by necessity. The speaker's voice cracked. Why is it descending? The envoy finally lifted his head. To listen. The chamber fell silent again, but this silence was different, heavier, colder, suffocating. The graveship hung above the council citadel like a dark moon watching its prey. Its soft red glow seeped through the windows, painting every alien ruler in a blood-colored light. Vexer, the oldest strategist, whispered, "The humans, they are forcing us to choose now." His voice broke. If we delay, if we hesitate, that ship will end us. The envoy finally turned, eyes reflecting the red glow from above. Humanity does not want your destruction, but we will not allow you to threaten our people again. The insectoid queen trembled. We never meant. Intent is irrelevant, the envoy said softly. Actions matter. And your actions set events in motion that nearly ignited a war no species could survive. The speaker struggled to speak again. Human envoy, we acknowledge, we were wrong. But how do we fix this? His voice cracked completely. What must we do to show we choose peace? The envoy took one long breath and let it out slowly, the weight of 1,000 years resting behind it. Acknowledge humanity as equal. Not lesser. Not inferior. Equal. Some aliens gasped, not because they disagreed, but because they finally understood how long they had treated Earth like a child, like a fragile newcomer. The guilt in the room grew heavier, almost unbearable. The envoy continued, voice steady. You will revoke the order demanding Earth to kneel. He stepped closer to the council orb, the only object in the room still glowing bright white. You will erase the judgment made against humanity. The crystalline speaker nodded weakly. Yes, this can be done. And you will declare, the envoy added, voice turning sharper, that no species may ever again decide the fate of another without representation present. A wave of realization swept through the chamber. This wasn't just about Earth. This was about the entire galaxy. About fairness. About justice. Humanity didn't want revenge. They wanted balance. The speaker's voice softened with deep remorse. We accept these terms. We will vote. Now. Immediately. The envoy nodded once. It was not approval. It was acknowledgement. The council orb rose higher into the air, glowing brighter than ever before. It projected beams of light across every seat. One by one, rulers raised their trembling hands. The orb recorded each vote with a flash. Yes. 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 The room filled with unanimous consent. Every voice, every species, every leader. The speaker looked toward the envoy with shaking hope. The ruling will be reversed. His voice cracked. Humanity will no longer be judged by fear. For the first time since entering the hall, the envoy closed his eyes, not in victory, not in triumph, but in relief. A quiet, painful relief that carried centuries of burden behind it. Then humanity will answer with peace. The holograms flickered again. The graveship slowly ascended, pulling itself back into higher orbit, its enormous shadow lifting off the council citadel like a dark cloud drifting away from a dying storm. The red glow faded. The sky brightened. The crushing pressure loosened around every throat. But the fear didn't vanish, because something else was still coming. The envoy stepped forward again, and the entire room leaned back instinctively. His voice was softer now, carrying something deeper than fear, truth. This decision does not erase your actions. It does not erase the danger you created, but it prevents the worst. He paused, letting his words settle. However, you must understand something clearly. Every ruler tensed. Humanity did not bring this fleet to intimidate you, he said quietly. We brought it because you forced us to show who we become when pushed to the edge. Then he lifted his head, eyes reflecting centuries of pain and sacrifice. We pray you never push us again. A cold shiver swept across the chamber. The rulers bowed their heads, not in submission, but in acceptance. In understanding. In guilt. The envoy turned to leave. But just before he reached the doors, he paused. His voice dropped into a tone darker than the ship above them. One last thing. The entire council froze. The envoy spoke without turning back. Earth has awakened. You will not silence us again. He stepped forward. The chamber lights dimmed, and the galaxy realized a truth that shook every star. Humanity had not come to bow. Humanity had come to rise. The council chamber remained frozen long after the human envoy turned toward the towering exit doors. It was as if time itself was holding its breath, unsure whether the galaxy had just been saved from destruction, or delivered into a new era built on fear and awakening. The soft echo of the envoy's footsteps spread across the marble floor, each sound like a slow heartbeat inside the ribs of 600 alien rulers who could not forget the fleet waiting above their world. The envoy didn't rush. He didn't look back. He walked with the calm certainty of someone carrying the weight of an entire species, a species that had just risen from silence and shown the galaxy the truth it had never wanted to see. Every alien watched him leave, watched the black coat swaying behind him, watched the shadow he cast grow smaller, and yet heavier in their minds. That shadow would haunt every council meeting for centuries. That shadow would become history. Just before he reached the exit, the colossal council doors opened by themselves, responding to his presence. No guard touched them. No system commanded them. They opened because something in the universe now recognized humanity differently, recognized the envoy differently. He stepped into the massive hallway, but the moment he crossed the threshold, something unexpected happened inside the chamber. The council orb, still glowing pure white, suddenly pulsed. Brightly, strongly, almost violently. The rulers gasped and pushed back in fear. The glowing sphere rose higher and higher until it hovered near the ceiling, shining like a star inside a storm of shadows. The speaker shouted, "What is happening?" None of the technicians could answer. Their voices shook with fear. "We do not know. The orb is reacting to something. We cannot stop it." The envoy stopped walking. Slowly, he turned back toward the chamber. But he did not re-enter. He simply stood still, watching through the open doorway as the orb pulsed again and again with a heartbeat that wasn't its own. At the fourth pulse, an eerie silence fell over the entire room. No alarms. No voices. No breathing. Just stillness. Then the orb spoke. Not with sound. Not with words. With a message projected in glowing text across every surface of the chamber. A message written in ancient council code, the highest level of warning. The Earth fleet has not deployed at full strength. The speaker collapsed into his seat. Another line appeared beneath it. The graveship is not alone. Every alien in the room felt their stomach twist with fear. More text flashed across the walls like divine judgment. Humanity has other fleets. Humanity has other ships. Humanity has other protocols. The insectoid queen whispered, "Other fleets? How? Way." Her wings trembled uncontrollably. The reptile warlord's scales turned pale, claws curling inward. If this is not full strength, then what have we provoked? The orb's pulsing light darkened. Then it displayed a final message, one that silenced the galaxy. Humanity is not alone. The rulers froze. Fear crawled through the chamber like a living beast. Vexer, the old strategist, gasped, "Not alone? What does that mean?" Before anyone could ask again, the orb projected an image so shocking the room nearly collapsed. An enormous shadowed structure far beyond the edge of council-controlled space. A ship? A station? A construct? None could tell. It was larger than the graveship. Larger than any fleet. Larger than logic. And behind it, silhouettes. Dozens. Hundreds. Thousands of silhouettes. The orb dimmed suddenly as if it had exhausted every ounce of energy it had. Lights returned. The projection vanished. The silence returned, but now it felt much heavier, much more terrifying than anything before. The envoy finally spoke from the doorway, his voice echoing through the chamber like the last breath of an old world. "You wanted to judge Earth alone." He stepped 1 foot inside the hall, not forward, not backward, but in the space between. "You never considered what watches Earth from the dark. What protects us. What stands with us." His voice dropped into a low whisper that crawled beneath every ruler's skin. "You never asked who taught us to build the graveship." A ripple of horror spread around the hall. The speaker managed to whisper, "Human envoy, are you suggesting there are species stronger than humanity, aiding you?" The envoy didn't smile, didn't blink, didn't lift his chin. He simply said one sentence. A sentence that froze the blood of every living being in the room. "You're asking the wrong question." He stepped fully into the chamber again, voice dropping into a tone colder than death. "The real question is," he looked around the room, eyes dark, ancient, knowing. "Why do you think humanity was silent for so long?" A terrifying truth dawned across every mind. Humanity had not been silent because they were weak. Humanity had not been silent because they were afraid. Humanity had not been silent because they were small. Humanity had been silent because something far greater than the council, something older, something hidden, something powerful beyond imagination, had been guiding them. The envoy turned away again, stepping through the doors at last. "We came alone today," he said quietly. "But next time," his voice faded into something unearthly, "we may not." The doors closed behind him with a deep, echoing thud. Every ruler sat trembling. The speaker collapsed. Vexer bowed his head in horror. The insectoid queen hid her face. The reptile warlord clenched his shaking claws. And the council realized the truth. They had not stared into the strength of Earth. They had stared into the shadow behind Earth. The chamber lights flickered once and went dark. And the galaxy understood. This was not the end. This was only the beginning.